Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the EBR 90, which is the French Tier 9 wheeled light tank, and it leads on to the EBR 105 at Tier 10. Unfortunately, the EBR 90 in my opinion is the worst out of the tech tree tier for tier, and I'll be explaining why throughout this video, but I still found it quite fun. I've already got my first mark of excellence on this tank, so I've obviously played it enough to get the first marks of excellence, and I'll probably be coming back to this tank and seeing if anything changes my opinion. So in this video I'll be telling you all you need to know about the EBR 90. I'll show you my commander and equipment setup, and I have 3 replays for you showing you some decent games, and as we go through the replays, they start from the worst good game to the best good game, so hopefully you've got something to look forward to throughout the video as I waffle on and talk to you about my opinions on this tank. So as you can see straight off the bat there, we're firing at this Concept 1B. It has fantastic concealment, but unfortunately it does have extremely poor view range in typical wheeled light tank fashion at 330 meters, so you're going to want to do everything you can to boost that up. It has 1150 hit points, which is okay. It won't go too far at tiers 9 and 10 with tank destroyers firing at you with big guns, but you're going to want to use your concealment and ability to avoid fire. So your mobility, how is it compared to the other light tanks in this tech tree? Well, this is one of the French wheeled light tanks that can go the same speed backwards and forwards. So with the EBR 90 you have a power to weight ratio of 38.6, which is really nice. You go 78 kilometers an hour forwards and backwards in rapid mode, and in the cruise mode you go backwards and forwards 65 kilometers an hour. So yes, it's extremely mobile. The hull traverse is 72 degrees a second and the turret traverse is 66 degrees a second, so you will run rings around pretty much anything you meet apart from other wheeled vehicles and some light tanks. The gun on this tier 9 is a 90mm gun, and this is one of the biggest downsides for me in terms of all of the weaknesses of this tank. You would hope for more alpha damage and a bigger gun than a 90mm gun at tier 9. This 90mm has low penetration at 185mm on its AP rounds and 230mm of penetration on its heat rounds for only 240 alpha damage. It does carry the quite good HE rounds at 75mm of penetration for 320 alpha damage for other light tanks and for artillery when you are able to find them. But yeah, that penetration is quite low and that alpha damage is quite low, and it just feels like you're not hitting hard enough for a tier 9 tank, even though you are a light tank or a wheeled light tank. The shell velocity on the rounds on the AP isn't too bad at 1150. It goes down to 850 on the heat and 840 on the HE. The DPM isn't fantastic at 1845. You have a base reload of 7.8 seconds, although the aim time is absolutely phenomenal at 1.4 seconds base, and the accuracy is a little bit derpy at 0.38, but you can get that down to a pretty good number. You have 6 degrees of gun depression, which is usable in quite a lot of situations you'll find yourself in. You are extremely low profile, so when you're circling people that's not a problem at all. And you have 12 degrees of gun elevation, which is very typical for French tanks to have poor gun elevation, so you have to watch out for that. You do carry plenty rounds of ammunition at 57 rounds. In terms of the armour, there's nothing really to speak of. The strongest bit on the hull and on the turret is 40mm, so yeah, be wary of being penetrated by pretty much everything, especially people that are clever enough to fire HE at you. So what do I run on my commander and my equipment then? So in terms of my equipment, I run advanced optics because the view range is so poor. I want to boost that up. I run advanced concealment because I want to boost this fantastic concealment even more, and I run a gun stabilizer because the base accuracy isn't fantastic. And on my commander I run 6th sense, born leader, rapid loading, situational awareness, steady aim, snapshot, run and gun, camouflage expertise and muffled shot. This is a very sort of sneaky stealth build for a light tank, and I found that this seems to work the best for me. So with my commander and my equipment setup, I now have a view range of 422 meters and a still concealment value of 227 meters, and I found that I outspot things pretty well. I have considered dropping the gun stabilizer for the vents to boost my view range just that little bit more, but I found that the gun just didn't behave for me, and considering, you know, the DPM isn't fantastic and the alpha damage is low and the penetration is low, I just wanted to try and make this gun as good as it can be. In terms of the gun then, how has that changed with my commander and equipment setup? Well, I now have a 1.29 second aim time, which is absolutely phenomenal, and a 0.27 accuracy, which is quite good, and my DPM's jumped up to 2227.2. So in this game you can see we've picked up 2.4k direct damage and 776 assistance. We've always kept our hit points intact for the late game just in case we needed it. So now we're going to go on, use our mobility and try and pick up the scraps of the damage at the end of the game. I thought that this was a sure thing, but now it's 2 on 4. We are in the advantage with the 4 tanks, but I'm just going to try and make sure now, and we take out that AMX 1390 on the move. And I found that, you know, the 240 alpha damage when you're trying to take out artillery and things like that at the end of the battle can be frustrating, because if you low roll you leave them on a sliver of health, and you know, you give them that chance to get a shot into you. So now it's just this tank destroyer we're coming to find and try and get the last bit of damage in this game. I have the mobility, I have the concealment in the view range to outspot this tank, and now I'm just going to go straight after this T-28 prototype. That tank doesn't have a fully rotating turret, so if I track it in place I should be able to absolutely wreck this tank. I've loaded an HE round. I was going to come up and just fire it into the rear of the tank, but I decided to track this tank in place right at the start, and I know now that I have this tank absolutely screwed. I didn't realise at this point I didn't switch to AP, which is why the tracks repaired so quickly. I should have just been firing AP right at the tracks there. But regardless, I'm going to be able to out-manoeuvre this T-28 prototype, and I'm going to be able to take at least 1 or 2 shots should I need. And yeah, that's what tracking things at the end of the game does. It brings your damage up and it brings your assistance up, and yeah, that's a pretty decent first game to show off the EBR 90. We finished second place with 4 kills, 3.3k damage, get a sniper medal, and we get 1,181 assistance. And now we're going to hop on into the second replay, and I'll talk some more about the EBR 90. Right then, we're now into the second replay of the video, and we're here on a recently revamped map, Great Wall, and this gives the EBR 90 a lovely chance to use its mobility and outspot opponents. And I'm going to head now down this area line. It's encounter, so the caps right in the middle of all these buildings, and I'm just going to go to this position, which is a nice early position I found for spotting at the start of a battle. There's no artillery in play, and I'm just going to peek over this ridge line and see what I can spot for my teammates. I noticed there's this AMX 13105 where we unfortunately just do critical damage and don't manage to take out that light tank, and as always I recommend trying to take out light tanks at the start of the battle. It's the best thing that I can recommend. It means that you have free reign with your mobility and your view range and concealment at the end of the battle should you need it to turn the tide. And we're going to wait as long as possible on that machine as he's going, trying to track him in place or set him on fire or ammo rack the machine, but we do get a nice shot in, and we've already picked up 1,283 assistance, and we've blocked 240 damage, which is yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Something that you're not going to do very often in any French wheeled light tank. So we're just going to keep poking up and spotting the enemies here, and we're trying to spot a little bit more actively here. I know that I'm being detected and I'm being lit up. But yeah, that's the good thing about these French wheeled light tanks, is that you can play active and passive spotting quite well if you know good positions to go to on the maps. And I'm going to try and make the most out of this gun. It does feel disappointing, like I said, compared to the rest of the line. 240 at tier 9 doesn't feel like it's good enough. However, you can make it work, and you just want to try and use this tank as a a sort of scout, a pure scout, and the damage comes when you're able to. Your main focus should be on scouting and helping your teammates that way. So as you can see here, we're sat directly without foliage in front of us, and we're spotting all of these tanks straight in front of me, and I'm just waiting for my opponents to get shots into these tanks. I'm loading an HE shell for this Ramator Borsig, and I'm hoping that I reload just in time to get a shell in there, and we managed to do, and that's a massive mistake there, and that's something that you can do in these tanks that go forwards and backwards at the same speed. I forgot that I was facing forwards, so I went forwards to go backwards, because I reverse up into location sometimes. And yeah, just be mindful and stay alert and pay attention to which way you're actually facing, so you don't just drive out in front of loads of tanks. That could have been an absolute disaster, but it ended up okay for us. And yeah, we've picked up now 4.5k assistance and 895 of our own damage. Unfortunately, we've taken a couple of shells, but we still have, you know, enough to go forwards now. We're going to try and spot out some more tanks ahead of us. We will repair our wheels there so we don't get locked in place in front of a tank destroyer and a heavy tank, and now we're going to go on in as we are winning this battle. And I found that if you do a good amount of spotting and don't be reckless at the start, you are able to turn the tide of the battle so early that you're, the enemies can't sort of recover from it, and it just means that you've won the battle quite early, and you can go on in at the end, be even more aggressive than you would normally, and get some extra damage in. So now we're going to come up behind these tanks here. I'm just checking with the third person camera he wasn't looking at us. I auto-aimed, and that was an idiotic move there. That could have meant that I took a shell from that 268 version 5, but we do get the second shell in and finish off that AE phase 1, taking our direct damage just to over 1000. And yeah, I think it's been a pretty decent game and a good showcase that you can play this thing like a pure scout and have a really good impact, and the damage, you just get drips and drabs here and there. The 240 alpha damage is quite underwhelming, but you know, you can make it work, and in longer battles this thing will be able to get the damage out. So now we're just going to try and find the last light tank. I've loaded one of my HE rounds in the hope that I'm going to get more alpha damage, and this is one of the benefits of every single wheeled vehicle, is that you're just going to be able to reach the last remaining tank quicker than most other tanks, unless there are a couple of wheeled tanks on your team or something like a T100 LT. So now we're just going to come up here to the middle, trying to avoid hitting the rocks. Unfortunately, the traction still feels a little bit weird. Sometimes it was a lot better when they implemented the analog steering. However, yeah, sometimes you do slides, you do have to be careful of oversteering. Unfortunately, we capped out, as teams do, but we ended up with a pretty decent result, and that's a good replay to show you how good this thing can spot and what that impact can have. So we finished that replay with 1k direct damage, 4.5k assistance. We get 1 kill, finish in third place with 1102 base experience points, make a small profit, and we'll head on now into the third and final replay. So we're now into the third and final replay of the video, and we're here on Lakeville, which is another nice map for a light tank, and I don't see this map too often actually since it's been introduced, but I used to love playing this map in a light tank. Unfortunately, just to the right of where I am now, there used to be a little boost spot where you were able to spot out straight in front of me. However, I don't think my view range would have been good enough to use that position anyway, so we've just gone forward a little bit, and this is very risky with a with any tank really coming down here, because if you get spotted by anything, you are likely to get shot up by a whole host of tanks that like to camp to the south of this map. But as soon as we do spot the enemies with our, you know, mediocre view range and our fantastic concealment, we're pulling back and just trying to get a lot of assistance at the start of this battle. There's a little bit of foliage in front of me which might make it difficult to spot things, but as soon as we spot things on that ridgeline, I'm hoping that people get shots in, and we're just going to try and play it passively at the start of the battle, try and keep our hit points intact. Had some physics and wheel moment there, but but fortunately for us, we do manage to stay upright, and that shows the fantastic concealment of this tank there. We fire at that IS-7 and we don't get spotted at 340 meters. I'm just trying to destroy that building so our allies, I should say, have shots at that IS-7 and trying and push up our assistance some more. This rock is quite useful, and it's a perfect size for the EBR 90 because this is quite a small tank. So you should be able to hide behind it with impunity, but you've just got to be careful if you come to this location of things coming down this road from the opposite end and just rushing you and getting you killed, because your only option is to fight them or to pull back, and if you pull back you're likely to get shot up by the enemy team. So I'm just going to test the sort of concealment factor of the EBR 90 here some more, and we fire that IS-7 again, and yeah, 320 meters, 325 meters, we don't get spotted. We're lucky there to penetrate the IS-7 with the heat round at that distance, and we're still keeping up these tanks lit. So I'm hoping that people are able to shoot these tanks for me, but however, looking at the minimap, it looks like quite a lot of our tanks have either perished or they've just gone round to the valley to cover the valley. And I'm just going to wait until I'm re-stealthed, and I think I might bug out and maybe head towards the town. Might get a few shots into this Conqueror. I think I do actually get a couple of shots into this Conqueror, or at least try before I move on. And there are enemies in the cap circles, so I know that there might be some tanks heading this way shortly, so I don't want to get stuck on this lake road, because this can be your downfall. And this is a relatively aggressive kind of push here by me trying to get assistance, but you can get up some fantastic assistance numbers here at the start of the battle if you do have support behind you. But now's the time to move. I'm just going to try and get out of the way before I get spotted and before anything pushes me, and we're going to go on over to the town and try and help our team take this match down. It's a very close match at the moment. We're behind by 2 tanks. We get a nice shot there into the Conqueror, and then we use our fantastic mobility to bug out. So I'm talking a lot about the fantastic concealment and the great mobility, and you might be thinking, well, why did you say that it's, you know, the worst tank or the worst wheeled tank tier for tier? And it's just because of the alpha damage and the DPM, and it just means that at tier 9 it can feel quite difficult to have good damage games. You can have really good assistance, but obviously a lot of people, myself included, like to do damage myself, and if you are in a position where you need to take out multiple enemies, like it's like 1 versus 4, 1 versus 5 kind of situation, this tank will be at a disadvantage on a city map. However, you just have to try and use your maneuverability and your concealment to try and outplay opponents that way. So now we're coming into the town here, trying to cause a bit of a nuisance here, come around different avenues, get shots in where we can, keep these enemies lit up, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid taking too many shots. I didn't expect there to be that many tanks here, actually. I don't think I looked at how many people were in the base capture. However, we are managing just to circle around, keep them spotted, and yeah, preserve our hit points for the moment. We're lucky there not to get shot at as we drove into a rock, and that happens quite often in this tank. It's just one of those things of wheeled vehicles in general. They slip and slide quite a lot. Some feel a little bit better than others, and I think that's why I like the tier 7 quite a lot. So now we're just going to be annoying this Keelan here, coming round and round, just putting shot after shot into his butt. And unfortunately for us, he chooses to rush round and take out our ally. And yeah, this is when I decided I could go for the opportunity to circle that tank and go round and round, but I'm just trying to get re-stealthed and try and bug out, really, because I think that one-on-one I'm not going to be able, for firepower wise, to deal with that Keelan, and it only takes me to bounce 1 or 2 times and him to hit 2 shots and I'm gone, because like 1150 hit points won't go too far. So I'm going to use my excellent speed to get out as far as possible and play the view range game and wait for support to come if they do manage it. So we're going to sort of skirt around the edge of this lake here. We've circled back around, use our view range to spot anything that might be on the lake road, and we're going to use our concealment to fire at these tanks and weaken them for our allies that are fighting them, and we're fighting from the rear. And should I get spotted, or should the Keeling come round, I should have enough mobility to get out with only taking one shot or trying to evade taking any shots at all. And as you can see, this is now an even closer game, and we are actually up by one tank, and I'm just trying to make the most of my gun and my 240 alpha damage. You can see here it's really frustrating. I'm putting multiple shots in, I'm just trying to get rid of these tanks. I don't know why I'm firing heat. I think I must have just loaded it for the Keelan by accident, kept it in there, but you know, it's not going to put us at a disadvantage. And firing it distance, you're going to want to fire heat because it doesn't lose any penetration over distance. And now we're going to rock on over. We're not getting capped anymore, so we're going to clear out this side with our teammates, and then we're going to head back in for the Keelan. But I think they've got that under control, so now I'm going to head back, spot for our artillery, and hope that they're able to take out this Keelan here. So we had a great game so far with 3.7k assistance and 2.3k direct damage, and this is one of the best games that I've had in the EBR 90. I think it might be my best game that I've had, and I have relatively decent games in the EBR 90, but I was struggling to have those really good games where you feel like you've really had a good impact damage wise. However, scouting wise, I feel like that's just the way you got to go. You got to have your impact in your scouting role more so than any other light tank, or more so than any other French wheeled light tank. So this WZ-111 Keelan's fired. Now I'm just going to go on in, try and get some shells into him, keeping him lit for our artillery. Unfortunately there we do bounce down, and our gun just flies up and we miss our shot. We get one shot into the Keelan here, and I'm just trying to get a tracking shot in, using these hard cover, these buildings as hard cover. Unfortunately for me, he does get a shot into me, damages my fuel tank I believe there, so I don't want to get shot again. And I'm just trying to bait him round into the open so that my artillery can actually have a shot on him, and I'm trying not to take any more shots. This is a very aggressive play, however the Conqueror gun carriage obliges with my request and absolutely wrecks that poor tank. How fair and balanced is artillery? So in that game we finish only with a second class medal, so people are playing this tank very well. We finish MVP with 1448 base experience points, 2592 damage, and 5248 assistance. We do lose a little bit of silver because of the heat, but that's not too bad, and I probably could have done with just firing AP and had the same result. So I hope this review was useful for you. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.